So, in the magical tradition, Easter is actually a rather significant day. It's a day that's honored as a spiritual holiday, I guess you could call it, but it's one of the high energy days, and we recognize it at the same time that, like the Catholic Church does. Slightly different teachings, but also a lot of traditions have a notion of freedom this time of year. If you're familiar with Passover, it's about the mythology of the Jews, and their freedom and leaving Egypt. But of course, it goes a lot deeper than that Kabbalistically. But magic, we may not recognize Christ as much as we would say, well, let's follow the pattern of Osiris. Now, Osiris, I share this story often, but Osiris was attacked and was once a man, a human being, attacked by the god Set, so destruction for the sake of destruction, if you will, and cut up into 14 pieces. Right. And then he was restored by Isis through her magic. And through that, he was transformed from a human into a god. So Osiris represents powerful transformation. Most of you probably are familiar with the story of Christ. In Easter, Christ was crucified, right? So he had his own trials and tribulations of being hung and nailed to a cross. There's so much symbolism in that with the nails and the letter vow and the spiritual teacher Hierophant card. That's a whole other video. These concepts of freedoms are going through some sort of pain, going through a sacrifice, letting it go and becoming freed again. Or Jesus, literally Easter as he came back from the dead, more or less. So in magic, though, this is, we recognize all these traditions, Passover, you name it, and there's probably other traditions that recognize this time of year. There's always going to be a bunch of idiots on social media who have to prove their point, and Easter comes from the goddess Esther, and that's fertility and all this stuff. Yeah, okay, that's not untrue either. All right, so spring is here. Whoa, wow, the flowers are out. So good for you. But this is a time of a deeper, powerful transformation. It's a very powerful day. And when I first started learning magic, I was surprised the energy that was from Easter and how we honored it and practiced it. I was going to say we celebrate it, but we really practice it. Remember, a religion is the celebration of somebody else's spiritual experience. So if you're celebrating a group of people leaving, their land in which they were enslaved, or celebrating someone else's trials and tribulations, being crucified, coming back from the dead, I guess that's all fair and well. But in magic, this is your time for liberation. But it's also your time to sort of put your foot down, draw a line in the sand, and that energy is working in your favor. I know a lot of Christian traditions practice Lent, so you give something up for 40 days. I don't know, swearing, sugar, alcohol. With the day of Easter is actually that line in the sand where the idea is, what could you give up forever? It could be an exterior substance, whether food or something like that, behavior. Remember, the teaching is the word of sin is restriction. So how are you freed from your sins? Well, it's becoming unrestricted, unencumbered. And what is getting in the way of your true will, your true purpose, which is your divine will and your divine purpose? And it's not and maybe you've made a lot of strides, but then you have to do it. Are there things that get in the way? The demons in magic are your self-imposed illusions, often manifesting as doubt or some version of insecurity. And I guess you could root it to fear. And remember, the original notion of the word sin is to just miss your mark. So where are you off? Where are you missing your mark, right? It's not a moral judgment. You're full of sin. You've done bad stuff according to the human moral code. I mean, are there bad things you could do? Absolutely. But I'm trying to share this where it's sort of above all of those sort of human laws and things like that. So this is about you, your relationship with your soul. What can be shed off? What can you be liberated from? So it's really the day of liberation in magic. Formal rituals, you sort of experience sort of this release, if you will. I would get sort of square and use this day and kind of contemplate what could you shed off? Where could you sort of draw that line? Because the momentum, I have experienced it where I've just used this day and moved forward and said, hey, I'm not going to fall into this behavior, this fear anymore. The first time I tried it, I gave up sugar for several years. And I just had to think of something on the outside. I didn't know what to get rid of or what to shed. And in a way, you kind of make a vow, not as formally, but when you make a vow, you make that commitment to say, I'm just going to do it, right? Just like people who quit drinking. Like at some point, you kind of make a vow and you're like, I'm done. The good news here is you don't have to reach some horrific bottom. So think in terms of what would give you more freedom in your life? What can you let go of? And sort of ride this energy that is going to help you transform into, it's really an alchemical process, but into your more divine self. Remember, Osiris was a human, then became a god. And I'm sure if you look up the internet on Osiris, let's say Lord of the Underworld, the death card is one of the symbols of Osiris. And he sort of oversees that. You'll see vignettes where he's overseeing the mummification process, but that's another transformation. And that's also designed to keep the aura intact. But Osiris is the energy we're working with on this day, on Easter. And Osiris is going to oversee that sort of purging and clearing and renewal. And on some level, it is like, how are you coming back from the dead, I suppose, but how are you elevating to a new state? And Easter is the day that you can just make this huge gradial leap and just operate from a new plateau, a plateau that you may not as consciously notice, where you may not judge, oh my God, I'm so inspired and I'm having great visions and everything's working out. But there's an empowerment with this day. So go back to the word of sin is restriction. What's restricting you, right? In magic, Satan, and I believe this is rooted in Hebrew concepts, but is that which restricts you from God, right? So that could be anything. Is it drinking? Is it sugar? Is it, super negative attitude? Is it your just fear of doing something bigger and more successful? Is it your fear of taking a chance on yourself? Maybe it's physical. Maybe it's your fear of, working out. That's going to be for you to sort out, but I wanted to make this quick video to let you know that it is a very revered day and there's something very special in this Easter energy. And again, the day is important, but we're in this time now. We celebrated Passover in the ashram that I grew up on, which I most remember the food, and we had to eat parsley. It was at our school lunch, we had parsley for the bitterness. I believe that's what it was, but I didn't enjoy that. But I got into the process, and I got the concept of it. So where can you release, bitterness, frustration, resentment, anger? These things are just holding you back. Remember, resentment's drinking the poison and expecting the other person to die. I love that saying, and I put it in my prosperity practices book. So think not just rebirth, right? These people that want to argue that it's fertility and all of this, it's really deeper than that, in the sense that it's not a rebirth. It's like the phoenix rising, which is also the Eon card. And if you look, I didn't pull the cards out, but pull out the death card if you have the Thoth deck. This is actually my deck for readings, and I have a deck that I use for demonstrations. Here it is. And this death card, sorry, I have an autofocus here, but if you look at the top, there's a phoenix. So again, a phoenix isn't a rebirth. It's rising from the ashes. So it's the old you, the human, normal commoner, turning into a conduit of the divine, living your purpose. Your purpose overall, it's bigger than like what your job is. You know, a lot of you have jobs. So like a job's a job. But you do have some level of divine sort of mission, divine frequency. It may not be, oh, you got to go teach others. It's also just you being you, like I always say, but that's so much of the essence of magic and finding your true will. But what's just holding you back? What's holding you back from a raise? What's holding you back from other greater opportunities, right? The idea is that your higher destiny, if you will, and your true will is abundant, is prosperous, more so than maybe you think at times. So what's holding you back? Where are you holding yourself back? What are your self-imposed restrictions? Those sort of demons are your own self-imposed restrictions. So look at that, release that, make it a special day. Just imbibe in this transformation. It is one of the days of the most powerful alchemical transformation. And if you take Osiris and just think, oh, this is a frequency that's powerful enough to turn a human into a god, if you will, sort of this ultimate transformation and attainment. And it was the magic and the love of Isis that helped do that and restore. Part of the myth, too, is that Osiris was restored, but only 13 parts of him were found. It's interesting because 13 is a number of unity and high love. Also a number that's really feared in, maybe less today, but it's sort of considered, at least in our culture, especially American, probably the rest of Western culture and whatnot, it's sort of a feared number. It's unlucky. They used to make buildings without a 13th floor and and the numbers and things like that. But I always think about that because, first of all, getting hacked up into 14 pieces or being crucified, I think to most of us would say that's pretty scary. The being restored into 13 pieces, I feel like some level people just pick up on that fear of change, that fear of growth, that fear of moving out of your little zone, your comfort zone. So consider all of that. Consider those fears or whatever. You don't have to ultra analyze it. My suggestion today is use it as a power day, and not to sound too corny, but it really is a level up. And if you look at this death card again, this is the headdress of Osiris. So this is you becoming that phoenix. And from this day, from onward, you really can clear the energy and set a trajectory. The idea is it's meant to be lifelong, not like a 40-day I'm giving up coffee or something like that, which I don't know if I'll ever want to do that, but you get the idea. So there's a powerful release, a powerful shift, a powerful renewal. Fortunately, we're in a new era, a new eon, a new spiritual teaching. So the old, where you have to be some version of crucified or some version of cut up into 14 pieces, but only restored as 13. What's the missing piece? The missing piece is his phallus. So I don't even know. I don't have an answer for that, but that's part of the transformation. Doesn't mean if you're a guy, we're all becoming eunuchs or something. I mean, obviously these are layered and coded myths, but it's almost like a new power came through in that divine power. So let's use this great day for a great liberation. There's a real peace that will be felt. And the reason the day is the day, it's Easter, but we utilize it because all the momentum is working in our favor to make a stronger commitment and to let go and to move out of our blocks, to move out of your sin, stop being a sinner, break through. But this is like spirit breaking it all and clearing the way. All you got to do is make that, take that step, decide to do it. Osiris or Christ sort of surrendered to that predicament, that crucifixion, knowing it was part of a higher purpose and a higher plan. So Again, you don't have to get crucified, but where can you release and surrender to a higher plan and hit your mark? This is about hitting your mark. Magic is about hitting your mark. And it's about success. It's about victory. And this is what's holding your victory back while it is no more on Easter. So, with that, happy Easter.